Well, as Brent said, I'm Greg Delavan. Some of you recognize me, I recognize some of you. Some of you probably recognize me because of my previous employment. We'll discuss that later, but I want to let you know that I'm here to let you know who I am beyond that employment. I'm a native from Coeur d'Alene. We're actually, Delavans are actually 6 generations here now. One of the 4th. My great-grandfather came here after the Civil War. Been here for a while, and that's pretty deep roots in Kootenai County. I haven't always lived here though. Along in the late 70s, or early 70s, late 60s, we had something called the draft. In the last year of the draft, and the first year they dropped school deferment, so I got lucky number 57. And so rather than get drafted and off to the Army with me, I joined the Navy because I had more control over my future.
Smart man.
I became a Navy corpsman. I went on to pharmacy school, and that, I say lucky because it actually turned my life significantly. I probably would have been in the construction industry around here because that's what I'd grown up around. But going through pharmacy school, getting an education caused me to look at different things, and frankly I've been in management for 40 plus years now. I'm married once, the lovely Ellen. She's for 36 years now. Got 2 kids. They're both back in town now, I'm happy to say. And a little bit more about that background. I came back to town. I got educated here locally, or so-called educated. I got a few degrees from Eastern in public administration and healthcare administration. I ran healthcare facilities for a while, and then I ended up taking a job offer elsewhere because there weren't as good of jobs around here. So I went off somewhere else because in the early 80s, there was tough to find a good job that allowed you to work within your education. There were lots of jobs. I could do lots of construction work, but I really couldn't get a good job in management, and the healthcare industry was all wrapped up around here. I did work in Spokane for a while in the healthcare industry as a business manager and executive over there, but I didn't want to be in Spokane. So along came an offer to take me back to Florida again. Now my duty station in the Navy was the Key West Naval Hospital, which was an interesting place for a young Idaho boy to go get sent to the Key West, and 10 years after Bay of Pigs. But it was quite an education, getting to know a lot of the Cuban expatriates and a lot of the military folks that were down there helping to keep us safe. I'm proud of my military career and proud of all of the military friends that I made doing that. I became an aviator there, and that started a passion for airports. Once it gets under your skin, it's under your skin. It's hard to get it out. And after working in the development business in Florida for a number of years, which was interesting, it was developing an airport and an air park down there where we could fly airplanes home. The job came open here, the airport director. And a couple of kids had come along by then, and I didn't want to raise my kids in Florida. So it was time to come home. My grandparents had passed by then. There was a piece of property that was family property out on Coeur d'Alene Lake that my uncle wanted to sell out of the family. I couldn't bear to let it happen, so I sold what I had and I bought that property, and now I run Delavan's Marina as well as other things. So my property rights background goes way back. It goes back to my grandfather. I grew up working on that marina. He built it by hand. We built the docks. We did it all. I worked there when I was 7 years old. So it's near and dear to my heart. A few years ago, the county commissioners. By the way, I've trained 20 plus county commissioners. If you can imagine that. Now, when I say train them, they come in. They don't know a damn thing about airports. So I had to teach them that, and some of them were pretty good listeners. Many of them were not. So some of the county commissioners decided that they were going to charge for boat ramps. I happened to own one of the boat ramps that they were going to charge for. I told them no. So we started a 12-year process of where they were trying to take it. East Side Highway District continues to try to take it today. We've been through through several court cases, we won them all. We had a 5-0 decision last fall with the state Supreme Court, and we reaffirmed our ownership. But nonetheless, the highway district likes to, you know, there are socialists around here, believe it or not, who want to take my property for other purposes. So I just think you ought to know about that, because these are some of the things you may have read about in the paper. You may have also read that as the Coeur d'Alene Airport manager, I was fired 4 times. And I think, I'm proud to say that that's a county record, I think. I don't know if anybody else has been fired more than that. Fired and rehired, fired again. A couple of times they didn't do it properly, so they had to do it again a week later. And I'm not ashamed of any of that, because I got fired for doing my job. My job was to protect and promote the Coeur d'Alene Airport. And there were some county commissioners that didn't want me to do that, and I was getting in their way. And so they decided they wanted to get rid of me, and they did. Other county commissioners brought me back. Fortunately, it was right about the election cycle. So that's a short story, short part of a long story. Many of you already know the story, but those of you who don't, I want you to hear it from me, and if you've got more in-depth questions, I'm happy to answer them. Some of the other things we did was you know, I was trying to avoid politics because I work for politicians. So you haven't seen me in a lot of these meetings. That doesn't mean I wasn't political and I did vote for Trump, by the way. Those of you who are old enough to know, you know, Steve Sims was a good friend of my father's. We go back a long way as Republicans here. And it wasn't, one time it wasn't very popular to be a Republican in Kootenai County. So we're proud of that part. That hasn't changed. I think that I could be a very good county commissioner. I've sat through hundreds of those BOCC meetings. I've seen some pretty good decisions and I've seen some really dumb ones. And hopefully, I'd be able to see the difference and make the right decisions. So that's why I'm asking for your support. I've decided it's time that I step up and try to correct some of the things that I see going wrong. I think that it's time for a regime change. I'm running against Chris Filios. I think that if we don't have change soon, we're going to have some real problems fiscally, socially. There was a few years ago, I worked with some of you on the ULUC. I'm the president of the Lakeshore Property Owners Association. I have been for 20-some years. And that last effort to drive us off of the lakefront was pretty significant. The ULUC, that's exactly what they was trying to do. They wanted 300-foot setbacks. Well, the lot's only 300 feet deep. It doesn't leave you a lot of room to build a house. So that's what they were pushing for. And we fought them. We worked hand in glove with the Northwest Property Owners Alliance, I say Owners Association, but Alliance. And it wasn't an easy thing because there were some people that were really committed to get that done, and they were very tricky. They had a lot of power. But we defeated that. And I'm glad to say we defeated that. I was in this room when the fire marshal showed up. As I was leaving, and I thought it was best that I left because I was working for the county commissioner at the time. When I got to the door outside, there was a guy with a pitchfork. I thought, oh, it's good, I'm leaving now. So, it's been an interesting ride. There are a lot of other things that we've been involved in. We were in the first board with the Boys and Girls Club. Nobody wanted to hear about it at that time and wanted to bring it into Coeur d'Alene first. It was interesting to me because it was such a great organization and we had good support behind it. Dick Bennett was generous enough to give us $500,000 to kick that thing off. We had a real good head of steam, and then we ran into School District 271, who didn't want it in Coeur d'Alene because they had their own ideas about kids after hours stuff. So they just put their thumb on us. That's why I went to Post Falls first. After it was successful in Post Falls, then it came to Coeur d'Alene. A good organization, I'm proud to be a part of it. A lot of other things I could talk about, but I don't want to stand up here and blow the air all night because Greg told me we've only got a few minutes. So I will stand for questions if you have some.
question, I'd just like to thank you for helping NWPOA with the water fight against the Indians and the federal government. That your association is still helping us pay the bills for the attorneys, so thank you.
That's an important one. If you don't understand the details, it's very complicated, but we learned that in 200.
Yeah. Rasmussen?
Yeah, I would like to know what your position or thinking is on the attempts to place a pre-parole prison release center in this county.
Well, I think this county is the wrong place for it. And I've been opposed to it when it came up last time. They wanted to put it out next to the airport. I said, that's really a dumb place for it, and it was right off the end of the runway, which would cause a lot of problems. Now, you may think, okay, let the airplane crash on them, but really, it's not good then either, because you get a lot of lawsuits. So, I've been opposed to it for, what's that, 20 years now, 15.
Thank you.
Randy?
Back here. So I knock on a lot of doors during election season, a lot of doors. And there's this guy I've encountered twice, Justin Delavan. Awesome guy. Is he gonna be involved in your campaign? Okay, because you got him.
Jody?
I just wondered what your feelings were on the proposed health corridor.
I just don't see why they're doing it that way. I don't like URDs in the first place, but I certainly don't think that qualifies for URD improvement. If it was well, we've cleaned up some pretty significant brownstone sawmills. You'd think a URD would be something we want to put in infrastructure and take care of those kind of things. It may have made sense down in Riverstone. Even that was controversial, and I wasn't entirely sure, but I just don't buy into the healthcare one.
Because you were involved, and I've worked with you before, when you were the airport manager, if you were to become a county commissioner, what plans would you like to see for any growth in the airport, or would you have any hopes that would be for the future of the airport? And also, what are your thoughts on the Hutter bypass? Is that still a possibility, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I could go on for hours on those subjects, but I won't. The Hutter bypass should be been around the airport area now. When they've got a new airport manager in here, they acquiesced to allow them to leave the road where it was. That's through the safety area, and it precludes the runway safety area from ever being any longer. So if the threat there is if Congress says, okay, we had a crash, those safety areas off the end of the runway have to be X number, and you've only got Y number, then you have to shorten your runway. Shortening the runway is not good for service for Coeur d'Alene Airport.
No.
So I was fighting for that, and I fought for it hard. I had, a good effort going there, but that's been changed now. Hopefully it would be changed back. It's not set in stone yet, but certainly it's going the wrong direction recently. And was there another part to your question?
Just, are there any goals for the growth of the airport or more development that you would like to see if you become a county commissioner, or that you would want to work towards?
Well, first, since I was removed from that position, I've kind of taken a step back. Doesn't mean I haven't been watching, but I haven't been directly involved. Yes, I'd like to see some changes in the master plan. I think that the airport, I guess we could back up a little bit and talk just a bit about the airport. When I was hired to develop the airport. I've been developing property with airports on the property, and that's why I was hired. At that time, there were a series of hangars down one side of the north-south runway, and that was it. One hangar on the other side that you could barely get to. And there were some significant barriers to entry, so it was only the big dogs that could get hangars. When I say the big dogs, it was like IFI and Naked On Corporation and them, because you had to bring in the sewer, water, road, everything to get the property ready to build before you could build your hangar. So we did hangar subdivisions, because part of the goal was to develop the property, have a place where people could live. Pent up demand, it was crazy. 23 people on a list that wanted to build hangars. So we started putting in infrastructure. And with the county government structure the way it is, that's not easy to do.
I'm gonna need out of time. Yeah, we're running short on time tonight, so.
But I'm happy to answer your questions. It goes on.
Quick one? Eric? Quick question. One more.
So-
One left.
stand with the taxpayers getting a say with, are you gonna listen to the taxpayers if they wanna vote on something, or are you just gonna ignore them?
Well, I'm a taxpayer, I pay a lot more than I'd like to, and it's gone up $2,000 in the last couple of years, so, you know, I pay a lot of taxes, so I think that, you know, I'm glad you asked the question, because my father used to say, I built a house myself on property that I already owned, and he died a few years ago. He says, it cost me $800 a month to live in my own house. I ain't right.
Right.
So y'all listen.
So you'll listen, and, okay, cause that's really a big issue with them. We get them voted in, and then they don't listen, and they don't care, and so what makes you different than Chris Filios?
Well, first of all, I understand the county's part of that, I understand the
You have
tax
to get along
structure.
with the county.
Pardon me?
You have to get along with the city council. It's
Not necessarily.